That's all. Boo-boo. Okay. You know it. Yesterday? Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Vallabha Girivaradhari and Yashodanandana Pradajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Pradajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtotar Tata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtotar Tata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad-gītā Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktavinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, so we have reached page 14, the third paragraph there, starting with, there are many examples. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On its 9th day of August 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad-gītā as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the introduction, page 14, 3 paragraphs down. The paragraph begins, there are many examples. There are many examples given of how we are to utilize those things which are set aside for us by the Lord. This is also explained in the Bhagavad-gītā. In the beginning, Arjuna decided that he should not fight in the Battle of Kurukṣetra. This was his own decision. Arjuna told the Lord that it was not possible for him to enjoy the kingdom after killing his own kinsman. This decision was based on the body because he was thinking that the body was himself and that his bodily relations or expansions were his brothers, nephews, brothers-in-law, grandfathers, and so on. Therefore, he wanted to satisfy his bodily demands. The Bhagavad-gītā was spoken by the Lord just to change this view, and at the end, Arjuna decides to fight under the directions of the Lord when he says, Karishye vachanam tava, I shall act according to your word. In this world, men are not meant for quarreling like cats and dogs. Men must be intelligent to realize the importance of human life and refuse to act like ordinary animals. A human being should realize the aim of his life, and this direction is given in all Vedic literatures, and the essence is given in the Bhagavad-gītā. Vedic literature is meant for human beings, not for animals. Animals can kill other living animals, and there is no question of and there's no question of sin on their part. But if a man kills an animal for the satisfaction of his uncontrolled taste, he must be responsible for breaking the laws of nature. In the Bhagavad-gītā, it is clearly explained that there are three kinds of activities according to the different modes of nature: activities of goodness, of passion, and of ignorance. Similarly, there are three kinds of eatables also: eatables in goodness, passion, and ignorance. All of this is clearly described, and if we properly utilize the instructions of the Bhagavad-gītā, then our whole life will become purified, and ultimately we will be able to reach the destination which is beyond this material sky. Yad-gatvan anavartante tad-dhamma paramam mama. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandjana shalakaya chukshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gudave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, Srila Prabhupada is continuing in his introduction here to emphasize the importance of human life, that there is a mission of the soul, even when we're in subhuman life, but there's no possibility of understanding that mission or acting in such a way that we can achieve it in subhuman life. So the Bhagavad-gītā will begin, in the first chapter and part of the second chapter, of Arjuna's reluctance to fight in the battle. And this book, as you may know or may not know, is part of a much larger, these 18 chapters of Bhagavad-gītā, part of a much larger book called the Mahabharata. And the Mahabharata is vast. There are many parts of it that don't seem to have anything to do with the Battle of Kurukṣetra. I don't know if you're familiar with it. I remember working, at one point the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust was going to publish the Mahabharata. And we had completed the Srimad Bhagavatam in Miami, and it was probably 87, 88. And Ridhyananda Maharaj was busy translating the Mahabharata, which is quite vast. It's 100,000 verses as opposed to 18,000 of the Bhagavatam. So it was a project that's scheduled to take a long time. And I remember working on the Adi Kanda. Kanda is similar to canto. And there was a whole chapter there about the residents of a planet below the Earth. You know, there's planets above the Earth and below the Earth. And it was a planet of snakes. And there were, I think, Vasuki was there. He was the chief snake. But it just, the chapter practically was completely just a list of names of the leading snakes on this planet. And I saw why, it wasn't a priority for Srila Prabhupada to translate the Mahabharata. It was a priority to translate the Bhagavad-gītā and then the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the point I'm making is that the essence of the Mahabharata that really we can take out of it is the Bhagavad-gītā. And the larger plot is that, Krishna, he comes to this world, as he says in chapter 4, when there's an upsurge of irreligion. Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam sajamyaham. This is a verse that I think most people born in Indian families learn early on. And it simply says that whenever and wherever there's an upsurge of irreligion in the world and dharma is being eclipsed, at that time I appear. And then the next verse he says what he does. Paratanaya sarunam vinashaya dushkatam dharma sangstapanataya sambhavami yuge yuge. I come to protect the devotees, to annihilate the miscreants, and to reestablish dharma. So the first question is, what is that dharma? What is the essence of dharma? And if you look it up in a lot of these words, English is like a big vacuum cleaner. There's many words that were once French words, or and Spanish words, and these words and that words, and they've even now taken in some English Sanskrit words. I'm sure Dharma is now in an English dictionary, along with yoga. I once looked in an unabridged dictionary. There was Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. They're all there. So Dharma is more or less defined as religion in the English dictionary, but that's not really going to get you very far. What does that really mean? So a beautiful definition of Dharma, according to the conclusive statements of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad-gītā, is in the first canto, second chapter, text 6. Savai pungsang paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahaitukya pratayata yayatma suprasidati. So this is an answer to a question by the sages. They were all gathered at a place called Naimisharanya. They were hearing the Bhagavatam for the second time. Sudha Goswami was there, and he heard Shukadev speak it to Maharaj Pariksit the first time. And you can just imagine how clear their minds were, and how acute the memory was. He listened to these 18,000 verses, memorized them all, and then he repeated them at the second Naimisharanya. Pretty far out, huh? So that's the difference between people in previous ages, especially who were raised in this culture. So what is stated there is that the question was, what is that dharma that people can perform? Which means that there are different kinds of dharma, and there's even cheating dharma, which is kicked out in the second verse. It says dharma projita kaita votra. In this Bhagavatam, all cheating religions are kicked out. And what is that cheating religion? It is some kind of process, discipline, chanting, whatever it is, worship, where the motive is something personal. It's something to satisfy your senses, either gross or subtle, maybe go to the heavenly planets, all of that. We're talking about the absolute truth and the absolute goal for the soul, which is to go back to Godhead and completely free of birth, old age, disease, and death, and to be reinstituted in our original relationship with Krishna. So there are many so-called dharmas which do not have that as a goal. And so they call cheating religion here, because the soul has this mission to finally end this round and round and round, birth to old age, disease, and death, the wheel of samsara, and to return to that blissful world where we came from originally. So this verse says, Savai pungsang paro dharma, the supreme dharma, which can completely satisfy the self, that's the point, is that which engenders, which leads to devotional service to the transcendental Lord. Such service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Now, unmotivated means with no material motivation. Motivation is not something I want to have a more comfortable life, longer life, whatever, go to the heavenly planets and enjoy in Nandana gardens. There's all kinds of things that can motivate you materially. But the unmotivated means motivated by one thing alone, that the service mood to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What does he want me to do? That's the whole point of the Gita. Arjuna was denying Krishna's order. Krishna had arranged for this battle. It was going to reinstitute Dharma in the world in the person of his elder brother Yudhishthira. And Arjuna was resisting. Now, he was put into that position by Krishna so that the Bhagavad Gita could be spoken. He was covered over. But that's the way he was. So what happens in the first chapter? He sees on the other side, please take there's these huge armies, thousands of elephants on each side, all with someone on the top, and they themselves are weapons. And then there's a whole cavalry, and then there's infantry, and they call akshauhinis. There's a certain measure, I don't know, but it's huge. A lot of soldiers on either side. So there's a no man's land, and then the soldiers are opposite each other. So Arjuna says, please take my chariot, because Krishna agrees to be his chariot driver. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but Arjuna is his intimate friend and devotee. And so Krishna, as Arjuna, there's a whole pastime where Arjuna agreed to have Krishna on his side, and on the other side, Duryodhana took Krishna's armies. He also has huge armies. So on one side, all these armies, and Krishna alone, who vowed not to fight. So both of them got what they wanted. Duryodhana said, who needs, Krishna, I'll take his armies. And Arjuna said, no, I'll just take Krishna. I know that's a better bet. Which, of course, he's right. So they go between the armies, and Arjuna wants to see, who am I going to fight now? Who's on the other side? And lo and behold, he sees his relatives, his friends. He sees Bhishma, his beloved grandfather figure, his teacher of martial arts, Dronacharya, many other friends and relatives, He practically drops his bow right there. I can't fight them. Even if I win, the spoils will be soaked with the blood of the people who I love, Who cares? I don't want that. I'll just go off and become a beggar, So Krishna says, how has this weakness come upon you? Get up and fight. You're the great Arjuna fighter. So that's the standard fare. The chariot driver is supposed to buck up the courage of the warrior on the chariot. But Arjuna says, no, I can't. I'll go Govinda, I shall not fight. So then Arjuna surrenders to Krishna as a disciple, rather than friend to friend, which they're not going to get anywhere, He says, now I'm giving up, now I accept you as my guru, I am bewildered about dharma. Karpa nidosho pahata svabhava prichamitam dharma samuda cheta. Samuda means bewildered, and cheta, my consciousness is bewildered about what is the right thing to do. On one side, my heart is telling me, I don't want to kill all these friends and relatives. And on the other side, I know that you want me to, your dharma personified, you want me to fight. So I'm torn. So now he says, you please resolve it as a guru, not as a friend. It's not going to work. I'll just keep arguing with you. So that's a critical point. And then the first, he chastises Arjuna, you're speaking like you're a pundit, but you're no pundit. You're lamenting for the physical body, but we're not the physical body. So the whole first 20 verses about the nature of the soul. Who are we? If we don't know who we are, then how can we know what's best for us? We end up thinking, what's best for my body? What's best for my mind? How can I be comfortable around the bodily concept of life? So that's what Krishna will speak. And here Prabhupada is summarizing it. That Arjuna's decision was based on the body because he was thinking that the body was himself and that his bodily relations or expansions were his brothers, nephews, brothers-in-law, grandfathers. So this is part of the original understanding of Bhakti Yoga. And that is that when we are making decisions and what is good and bad and pleasurable and painful, just on the basis of the body, gross and subtle, mind is also part of the body, then we're in illusion, and we're prolonging our stay in the material world. Because all of those calculations, when we act on the basis of what's pleasurable for the body, then we're implanting a desire seed in our hearts. Oh, I had fun when I did that. Well, let me do it again. Let me do it again. You see? And all those desires are implanted in our consciousness. When the gross body finally dies, and it will for all of us, then that's not the end of us. The subtle body, the mind, intelligence, and ego go on and encase the soul. And that subtle mind and intelligence and ego, they form the template of the next body. In fact, by the time we leave this body, the next body is already planned because there's higher, the demigods are watching, and the super soul knows exactly where we're at, So that's how we've been going on life after life. And in this Kali Yuga, it's so degraded that we'll probably lose, if you just have no instruction like this, we'll just lose the human form of life. And human form of life is this juncture, the one chance where with the superior intelligence, we can control the lower self by the higher self, act in such a way that we're purifying our consciousness, our senses, and to the point where we can even not have any desire for material sense gratification anymore, because we're experiencing such a higher pleasure in relation to Krishna. That's the standard of enjoyment is completely different. The sense gratification is flickering, it comes, it goes, and it ultimately produces misery and another birth and death. Spiritual pleasure means you're pleasing Krishna, and it's opening the path back to guide it. So this is the choice in the human form of life. So now Prabhupada is writing, Bhagavad-gītā was spoken by the Lord just to change this view, and that view was the bodily view that Arjuna had, and his calculation was on the basis of, oh, here's my brothers, nephews, brothers-in-law, grandfathers, I can't kill them, I can't do this. So immediately he's in illusion, he's in Maya. So then Prabhupada talks about how in this world, we're not meant for quarreling like cats and dogs. We must be intelligent enough to realize the importance of human life. And that's what I was trying to emphasize. And Bhagavad-gītā is spoken for those who are interested in making the solution to all the problems of life. All right, I'll go on. If there's any questions, comments, just raise your hand and we can get a microphone. So, what is that destination here? Yadgatvananavattadhamma padamang mama means once going to that place, which is my dhamma, my abode, one doesn't come back again. That is my supreme abode. That destination is called the Sanatan sky, eternal. Sanatan means eternal. The eternal spiritual sky. Can you press the button and turn that on? It's kind of stuffy in here. Yeah, the fan there. I think it's. We could do that. But the thing is, this one, there may be some noise. Yeah, this one. Well, let's see what happens when we get the sea breeze. I think we'll probably be okay with that. Okay, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So in the paragraph you just read, it talks about Arjuna's bodily expansions. The sentence is, this decision was based on the body because he was thinking that the body was himself, and that his bodily relations or expansions, etc. What does it mean, Arjuna's expansions?
Expansions in the sense that it usually would mean like children and relatives like that, blood relatives, He doesn't. I don't think he has any children on the other side, but he has a lot of nephews and cousins and things like that. All of Duryodhana and his 100 brothers, they were all part of the same clan, the Kauravas. So there were all kinds of interrelationships, blood and marriage relationships. So that's what the expansions are. But generally, Hare Krishna, welcome. The expansion would be like a family, the children, and then the grandchildren, and on like that. That's the symbol. Okay, the Sanatan sky. The destination is called, that destination where we want to go is the Sanatan sky, the eternal. This is the second paragraph on page 15. It's called the Sanatan sky. Sanatan means eternal. The eternal spiritual sky. In this material world, we find that everything is temporary. It comes into being, stays for some time, produces some byproducts, dwindles, and then vanishes. That is the law of the material world. Whether we use as an example this body or a piece of fruit or anything, but beyond this temporary world, there is another world of which we have information. That world consists of another nature, which is Sanatan, eternal. The Jiva is also described as Sanatan, eternal, and the Lord is also described as Sanatan in the 11th chapter. We have an intimate relationship with the Lord, and because we are all qualitatively one, the Sanatan Dhamma or sky, the Sanatan Supreme Personality, and the Sanatan living entities, the whole purpose of the Bhagavad-gītā is to revive our Sanatan occupation, or Sanatan Dharma, which is the eternal occupation of the living entity. We are temporarily engaged in different activities, but all of these activities can be purified when we give up all these temporary activities and take up the activities which are prescribed by the Supreme Lord. That is called our pure life. The Supreme Lord and His transcendental abode are both Sanatan, eternal, as are the living entities, and the combined association of the Supreme Lord and the living entities in the Sanatan abode is the perfection of human life. The Lord is very kind to the living entities because they are His sons. Lord Krishna declares in the Bhagavad-gītā, Sarva yonishu aham bija pradakpita. I am the father of all. Of course, there are all types of living entities according to their various karmas. But here the Lord claims that He is the father of all of them. Hare Krishna. Can you sit over here? Because it's the men's side. And she can sit over here. Is that all right? If you don't want to sit on the floor, you can sit on the bench back there. Yeah, we have these very comfortable benches. Hare Krishna. Yeah, and we're on page 15, in the middle there. So that world, Krishna's world, right in the middle of the page, looks like it's equidistant. That world consists of another nature, which is Sanatan, eternal. Page 15. The Jiva, that's us, is also described as Sanatan, eternal, and the Lord is also described as Sanatan in the 11th chapter. We have an intimate relationship with the Lord, and because we are all qualitatively one, the Sanatan Dham or sky, the Sanatan Supreme Personality, and Sanatan living entities, the whole purpose of the Bhagavad Gita is to revive our Sanatan occupation or Sanatan Dharma, which is the eternal occupation of the living entity. We are temporarily engaged in different activities, but all of these activities can be purified when we give up all these temporary activities and take up the activities which are prescribed by the Supreme Lord. That is called our pure life. So this is, Srila Prabhupada is giving us a summary of the mission that we have as human beings. And it's so important to understand that, because otherwise we are doing things that are not really to the point. They're not helping us move toward that point. Bhakti yoga is oftentimes called a bhakti marga. Marga means a way. It means a way where you journey and get to a destination. So entering that bhakti marga is what this movement is all about, giving an opportunity. Srila Prabhupada made such sacrifice to provide us with the knowledge, to provide us with the process, and even worked so hard to establish temples like this where we have a place where we can meet and engage in it, which is so important. If you're going to become that's what colleges and universities are for, to give a place where you can imbibe the knowledge amongst other souls who are going in the same direction. You need that. So these temples are meant to be little sample Vaikunthas. It requires that we who live here, keep it up that way. But that's the idea. And what does that mean? Is that everything in this building, whether you're in the kitchen, you're here, or you're in the ashram, or in the lobby, whatever it is related to Krishna. At the end of this little talk, there'll be this beautiful arti. You'll see the deities. Certainly that's meant to give us a vision of the Lord's form with that present vision that we can see. We can't see spirit right now, so Krishna agrees to appear through wood or through stone, but He spiritualizes it. We shouldn't think that, these are just dead idols. As Krishna is there, He's appearing through this form that we can relate to. And so then you go out on the patio. Well, this patio is for Krishna. You're going to get a little food there. It's food that's been offered to Krishna. It's prasadam. It's spiritual food. The sounds, the sights, the taste, even the smells, the incense, has always been offered to Krishna. It draws the mind to Krishna. And the idea is the service. The real connection is through service. This is also service. I'm performing a service. I'm repeating Prabhupada's words, trying to give you an understanding of the philosophy. And you're listening. That's the first, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. There's a great devotee named Prahlad Maharaj who appears in the 7th canto. And his teachings to his father, of all people, who was a big demon, but he tried to teach him, and to his friends. There's a whole section of his friends. And they're all, very, very conclusive. So what did he say to his father? You know, his father said, what is this? What system you're doing? You know, and so he gave him this verse. And this verse encompasses and summarizes what we do here, what any bhakta does. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smadanam, Pada, Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. That's the summary of the Hare Krishna movement. So the first word means Shravanam, to hear. Yeah, what we hear is so much forms our consciousness. You know, a baby is born, he's hearing from his mother, from his relatives, you know, like this, and they're teaching him words and so forth. And school, hearing. Reading is a kind of hearing, right? You're hearing and discussing. So, Shravanam, Kirtan, and then chanting. Now, the perfect example of that is what we have. We're going to chant Hare Krishna. I'll chant, you'll hear, you chant, I hear, right? We're hearing the holy name of Krishna. Very, very powerful mantra. You know, this is Hare Krishna mantra. This is called the Maha Mantra. The best means of purifying the heart and reawakening our relationship with Krishna and getting off the bodily platform and achieving the goal of life. It centers on hearing and chanting this mantra. But there's other services. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. By hearing and chanting, you come to the point of remembering. So important, because remember what I said, the state of your consciousness when you leave your body is going to determine your next body. So the more that we can fill it with thoughts of Krishna and understanding the philosophy and seeing the world through Shastra, the more likely we are to remember Krishna at the time of death. The thoughts that are most dominant when you leave this body are what determines your next life. So the more that we think of Krishna, work for Krishna, read about Krishna, talk about Krishna, you know, the more our minds will be filled with Krishna thought. And the wonderful thing is, it's not like, okay, Krishna, I'm going to think of Krishna again, right? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. No, it's a great joy, because right? We can ask Kurt. I'm amazed at how serious he is at chanting japa. He's there at the beginning of the japa period. He's there at the end of the japa period. He's chanting. And I remember when I first, started chanting, you know, I would chant a couple of rounds a day and then go to work. I had a job. Maybe you have a job. I don't know. Maybe you don't have a job. But and how much can you chant at the work? But I try to integrate it into. I was an inhalation therapist in a hospital. So I'd go up with the patients and I'd be chanting in my mind, trying to, I didn't know what I was doing. I was chanting, trying to project it as a curative, But let's be honest. I think if someone is very much attracted to this movement or the reading, so previous life, there's something coming from a previous life. If you're really saying it's something interesting, I want to check it out, because there's millions of people who come across it and say, "Are you guys nuts? Forget it. I'm not on it." Right? Giving up illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, intoxication. That's all I do all day. You know what I mean? So that happens, previous life. That's okay, We'll build on it. But the point is that it's not such an austere program. You read about yogis going to the Himalayas and meditating and living apart from. It's inconceivable, and Prabhupada points it out. Krishna says that 6th chapter. That's dhyana yoga, ashtanga yoga, eight limbs, and it's the classic. You're sitting for hours and hours, controlling the breath, Om, like that, trying to, I don't know what, you're not thinking of Krishna personally. Otherwise you go down, you get down the mountain, then you join a Hare Krishna temple. But, so at the end of that chapter, Arjuna says, I can't do it. It's not possible for me. He's representing us. He gives a very nice way. Chantalam himana Krishna, because the whole thing is controlling the mind, wrenching it away from material thoughts and placing it on super soul within, He says, Chantalam himana Krishna, pramati balavadraham. The mind is very flickering, very powerful. It wants to do this and has its mind. I like to get a little joke. The mind has a mind of its own, right? You try to control it, it's going to do what it wants to do. To control it, says Arjuna, is harder than controlling the wind. And I remember when I lived in Miami, we had these hurricanes sometimes, or but even if they're don't hit you directly, there's still these powerful winds blowing. And it's just, wind can be super forceful, So he says, I can't do it. So Krishna says, yes, you can, with practice. Okay, what happens if I fail? I'll give up all my material life. I'll go to the mountains and meditate. I failed in that, and I already give this up, so I'm like a riven cloud. I've got nothing. So Krishna says, no, there's no loss. You'll take birth in... thank you for coming. Did you get any prasad? Okay. Hare Krishna. Very... You have to go too? No, but you're with them. Okay. Even a little advancement on this path protect you from the greatest fear. So, where was I? I don't remember. The point is, what is it? Oh, the mind, of course. You can see how difficult it is. So Arjuna complains, and Krishna says, no, you can do it with practice. And then he said, what happens if I fail? He says, no failure. And he reiterates what he said in chapter 2, but he expands it. Shuchinam shimatam gehe yoga brashta bhaja. Yoga brashta means what it sounds like, broken yoga. Yoga brashta. If you break the yoga, give it up. I can't do this, All right, but you made some advancement. And then you'll take birth in a wealthy family, or even better, a family of yogis like that, Just like Prabhupada, he took birth in a family of devotees, as did his guru, And that's very auspicious. We see this little girl, Gaurangi, the wonderful family, Purushottam and Priya and Gaurangi. So that from the birth, the child is exposed to the deities, and very auspicious. And Prabhupada also grew up with that, So the point is, there's no loss or diminution, But at the end, because Arjuna is saying, I can't do it. So Krishna says, don't worry. Yoginam api sarvesham margadenantaratmana shraddhavam bhajate yomam samayuktatamamata. This is the last verse of the 6th chapter. It says, of all the yogis, the greatest yogis are those who are always thinking of me with great faith and love and worshiping me. And Arjuna breathes a huge sigh of relief. You can almost hear it on the page. Because he's already a dear friend of Krishna. He's always thinking of Krishna already, So then we get into the 7th chapter, and Prabhupada makes the point that the middle 7 chapters are the essence of there's 18 chapters. So you have 1 to 6, 7 to 12, and then 13 to 18. And the middle 6 chapters are the essence of the Gita. And you have, because the next verse after the last verse of the 6th chapter, first verse of the 7th chapter, it says, Maya sakta manaparta yogam yunjan manashriya. Now I'm going to teach you how you can naturally have your mind more and more attached to me, even in living in your ordinary life. And he gives him like how you can see me everywhere. Rasoham apsukonte yapabasmi. I am the taste of water. I am the light of the sun and the moon. I am the effort of man, the ability in man, the fragrance of the earth. In other words, all the things that we experience every day, if you remember that Krishna that's part of his energy, and our senses that we perceive it are also part of his energy. So where is Krishna not there? He's there. You can be reminded at every moment. The light of the sun and the moon, So this is real yoga. You don't have to go to the Himalayas. You live your ordinary life, but add this consciousness. See yourself, as like that's the beginning step. So it's very wonderful. Krishna's giving all of us a chance to perceive it. So Prabhupada is giving us the destination. What is all this about? What are we trying to achieve? And we're trying to resume our life to be promoted again to the eternal sky, the indestructible spiritual world, where there's no hint of ignorance or illusion or suffering, because Krishna is there, and everyone is moved in everything they do and think, and every breath in acts of love for him, and getting reciprocal exchange from him. And it's a world of eternal play, lila. Isn't that what we want? Yeah, where we don't have to, vacation is always on. Krishna had a job, right? He was a cowherd boy, but if you analyze that job, they go out in the forest with the cows and they play all day. He and his friends. And the cows, they eat the grass and everything. And then, when he's doing it on earth, then these demons come and he kills the demon. That's another pastime. But it's like the ideal job. I mean, if God is all-powerful and he can arrange things as he wants, then he's going to arrange it in such a way that it's just blissful. Why would he ever let anything become a source of pain, you see, in his own abode? But he's also moved by this love for us who've wandered from that world and we're struggling like anything, suffering like anything in this world. So he comes down, he speaks the Gita, he empowers his representatives to always be here and to guide us if we want the guidance. So this is how it works, is that Krishna, he loves us, but we've given up on him. But he never gives up on us. He's always there in our heart, trying to tell us everything, but we are not hearing. So he comes outside, the Supersoul comes outside as the Guru and as the Shastra, in order so that if we're receptive, we can take in and we can start on the path and make progress. So that's the whole idea here. Okay. All right, let's go through this. Our pure life, I think we finished that paragraph, right? And Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord and his transcendental abode are both Sanatan, eternal, as are the living entities, and the combined association of the Supreme Lord and the living entities in the Sanatan abode is the perfection of human life. The Lord is very kind to the living entities because they are his sons. I think I went through this already. Well, anyway. Okay, Bhagavad-gītā declares, Sarva Yonishu Aham Bija Pradakpata, I am the father of all. Of course, there are all types of living entities according to their various karmas, but here the Lord claims that he is the father of all of them. Therefore the Lord descends to reclaim all of these fallen conditioned souls, to call them back to the Sanatan eternal sky, so that the Sanatan living entities may regain their eternal Sanatan positions in eternal association with the Lord. The Lord comes himself in different incarnations, or he sends his confidential servants as sons or his associates or acharyas to reclaim the conditioned souls. Now just one word, because Prabhupada is speaking this, I mentioned how it was written, he's dictating this in the office. So he uses words that may not immediately be understood. What is an acharya? Acharya is based on the word achar, which means behavior or activity. And what it means, the definition of acharya, is someone who knows the Shastra very, very well. Shastra means scripture, lives according to it, and teaches it. That's an acharya. He knows it, he lives it, and he teaches it. As I say, there's a t-shirt, I made these t-shirts, Bhagavad-gītā. Learn it, live it, and give it. That's the whole Krishna consciousness movement. We have our distributors, learn it, live it, give it. Perfect examples, Vijay and the other boys. All right, going on. Therefore, Sanatan Dharma, eternal religion, does not refer to any sectarian process of religion. It is the eternal function of the eternal living entities in the relationship with the eternal Supreme Lord. Sanatan Dharma refers, as stated previously, to the eternal occupation of the living entity. Sripad Ramanujacharya has explained the word Sanatan as that which has neither beginning nor end. So when we speak of Sanatan Dharma, we must take it for granted on the authority of Sripad Ramanujacharya that it has neither beginning nor end. The English word religion is a little different from Sanatan Dharma. Religion conveys the idea of faith, and faith may change. One may have faith in a particular process, and he may change this faith and adopt another. But Sanatan Dharma refers to that activity which cannot be changed. For instance, liquidity cannot be taken from water. You may freeze it, but eventually it turns to liquid again. Cannot be taken from water, nor can heat be taken from fire. Similarly, the eternal function of the eternal living entity cannot be taken from the living entity. Sanatan Dharma is eternally integral with the living entity. When we speak of Sanatan Dharma, therefore, we must take it for granted on the authority of Sripad Ramanujacharya that it has neither beginning nor end. That which has neither end nor beginning must not be sectarian, for it cannot be limited by any boundaries. Those belonging to some sectarian faith will wrongly consider that Sanatan Dharma is also sectarian. But if we go deeply into the matter and consider it in the light of modern science, it is possible for us to see that Sanatan Dharma is the business of all people of the world, nay, of all living entities of this universe. And just one word, a few words on the basic meaning of the word Dharma. Now, in Sanskrit, each word, it's a very scientific language. In fact, the very word Sanskrit means perfectly composed, perfectly created. I once read this far-out article many, many years ago about how NASA, the space, thing, they were figuring out something with their computers and everything, and they needed a perfect language which they could then use. And they went through all the languages and they picked out Sanskrit because of all the construction, the different relations of the letters. So each Sanskrit word has a certain root. And the root of the word dharma is dri. Dri means that which sustains you. That's an essential element of something. Like, what's the essence of this bench? You sit on it, and it's comfortable, and, that's like a chair, right? If you sit down on the bench, and the bench collapses, and it's not holding you up, thanks a lot, It's not meaning its dharma, Everything has its function. Now, then the question is, what is the dharma of the living entity? And our dharma actually is to serve. We may not realize that now, but we as living entities, we're taking help from the body and we're serving the body. We're moving the body here and there, feeding it and everything like that. We're serving. The problem is that service is not giving us complete bliss because it's not service to Krishna. The original service is service to the Lord. There's this verse that I sometimes chant. I'll give you it because I like to do a poem. I was very impressed with this verse. It stuck with me. It's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it's Lord Chaitanya teaching Sanatana Goswami. We're talking about so much Sanatana. Sanatana Goswami was his first disciple. So he's teaching him about the process, and this is like a turning point where the living entity is turning away from the demands of the body and all of the craziness and turning toward God. So this is like a little song about that. And there's some evidence it was written by Madhavendra Puri. Those who know him. So he says, Kama dinang katina katita palita durni deshas. Tesham jata mayna karuna nattapano pashantihi. Utsrijaitan atayodupate sampratam labdha buddhis. Tvamayatak shadanamabayam mamniyung svatma dasye. In how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy, yet on I've gone, shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. But now I'm rejecting those hellish desires. For my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. So, we got to serve. That's our dharma. The question is, what are we going to serve? Are we going to serve our lower self, the modes of nature? I see there's one of my neighbors. She's a fairly young lady. She's in her early 40s or something. Nice lady. And sometimes she's standing outside of the apartment. What's she doing? Smoking a cigarette. Obviously her husband or friend, boyfriend, whatever, doesn't want to get secondhand smoke, so she's out there. And she's been there for at least a year. And and it's obviously, I smoked for 8 years, from the age 15 to age 23, I think it was. And finally I got a serious case of hepatitis, and there was no question of smoking in the hospital, in the hospital bed. I was in there for a month. I think that's how I finally gave it up. I don't remember any real difficulty, it was like lying there. But anyway, even today, after all, a lot fewer people, or at least percentage of Americans smoke today than they did like in 1960, 70, But it's such an insane thing, Yes, you're satisfying a desire that you created by smoking the cigarettes, And that's emblematic of all material desires. Even the subtle ones, classical music, this and that, whatever it may be. It may be in a different mode, but it's still keeping you bound to this world of birth and death. So, but there is a kind of service that there's no downside. And that service is a service to Krishna. He's praying here, and I don't want to. These things have caused me so much demand. Not only the kama, but the krodha, the anger, the grievances, the this, the that. There's so many different demands that are made on us that we serve them. But vairagya means to progressively become attracted to Krishna, so that you can give up these other demands. And these four regs may sound so difficult, at first. But actually, if you practice nicely and you chant, the chanting is essential because that's Krishna there in the form of the holy name. You get attracted to the chanting, to the holy name, and the other things just fall away. And you can see that they were just a burden. They're just holding you down, holding you back. So that's really the whole essence of Krishna consciousness, taking your attraction and your sense of service and systematically, according to Shastra, according to the Acharya's words and all these things, cultivating the attraction for Krishna. And really, it starts with attraction to the Acharya, to the great souls. This is a whole lesson in itself. We only have a few minutes. But I found out there's something called that I called the Sadhu Sangashtaka within the Bhagavatam. The teachings of Lord Kapila Deva was an incarnation of Krishna. He comes in the third canto, 25th chapter, starting text 20 and going through text 27, I think it is. And it's all about the need for searching out the sadhus, just like we have sadhu sangha or satsang, right? That's the essence, is that first comes some faith, some preliminary interest, then you come into the association of devotees. Now in the present age, that can be, you're hitting a certain site and you're, because you're in the middle of Utah somewhere, a million miles from a temple, and it's most practical. Just like the pandemic, everyone's getting on Zoom, we're getting association, even through that way. It's not the ideal, but it's possible. But so prasangamajaram pashamatmana kavayo vadus aja sadhashakaro moksha dvaram apavatam. Mundane affection keeps us tied to birth and death, infernal. But love for sadhus opens wide the doors to life eternal. So that's really the key. When we open Prabhupada's books, we're getting the best association we could have. Especially this Bhagavad-gītā, Krishna's association and Prabhupada's association. What could be more auspicious? And if you really, try to enter into it and act, try to cultivate it, then you can see your whole life changing just from this one book, for the better. So Prabhupada is laying the foundation here with this wonderful introduction, and we'll continue to explore it. Any comments or questions? Let's see, how far did we get here? Does anyone? Okay, we finished. Did we finish that first complete paragraph in text 16? Yeah. Page 16, okay, the English word religion. That's where we start next, okay. All right, so let me give you a little poem then, because we have a little time. So, well, how about the fall and redemption of the soul? Some of you haven't heard that one yet. So this is not, have you heard this? There's a lot of words in English that end in the iti, and I had a rhyming dictionary. Anyway, so this describes the fall and redemption of the soul, of any soul, so we can relate to it. Where Krishna lives, felicity abounds. With pure simplicity and loving sensibility, all serve him with humility. But when a living entity forgets his true identity, and out of sheer stupidity surrenders to cupidity, he loses all sagacity and with it all capacity to understand reality or curb his sensuality. Abandoning humility, he touts his own ability, forgetting his fragility and fortune's volatility. Immersed in asininity for what seems an infinity of lives devoid of piety, he suffers in anxiety till contact with God's devotee, perhaps of utmost brevity, awakens his affinity for words of the divinity. Perceiving the futility of all his imbecility, the soul regains his sanity and casts away his vanity. Endowed with new humility, he serves with all ability and growing spontaneity his guru and the deity. Regaining his identity, the wayward living entity returns to the fraternity of Krishna for eternity. So we're all somewhere on that that reverse parabola. We're on that line somewhere, hopefully going on the upswing. But really, that's what it's all about. I have a slideshow that goes with it too. Sometimes I show it, So we have some affinity for words of the divinity. Otherwise, you wouldn't have sat through even my boring class and with Bhagavad-gītā. So you got the affinity. So we have to cultivate that affinity and let the other affinities die off, for Maya. It's all a struggle to become more and more attracted to Krishna and less and less attracted to Maya. And Prabhupada would always say, it's a good sign if you want to hear about Krishna, because that hearing is the first, this quote, is the first qualification for going back to Godhead, the eagerness to hear about Krishna. All right, one more. Now this is a classic. There's a book called the Krishna Karnamrita, which is just pure nectar from beginning to end. And one of the verses quoted at least twice in the CC, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, is just a meditation on Krishna. Maduram maduram vapurasya vibhor. Maduram maduram vadanam maduram. Madugandhi madusmitameta daho. Maduram 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 maduram. You already know half the verse. Maduram means sweet. Sweet, sweet is my dear Lord's form. Sweet is still his face so fair, but his honey-scented, gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. Go a long way just on that verse. And maybe one of these days I'll take up a little time, and we can work on the art of chanting these mantras. Now, Bhagavad-gītā is quite simple. There's just 2 different meters, but this is built into the Sanskrit. Chanda. Chanda means the different meters. Here's one more. I know it's getting late. I may not be able to give you the translation, but listen for the maduram, 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 okay? Dutatapani durma da bilo bidakula baham vidichata chandaka badanam abadanam jagatam mamadisham mabhyuteti muditana nabimba maho kimapikisho the dhamma maduram, maduram, maduram. Again by the same author. So you have to come on Monday and I'll tell you what it means, otherwise you're going to miss it. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol. Maybe after the RT, I'll tell you. All right, we better pack up.